Good afternoon, everybody. This is Arun from Ingram Micro. We're about 5 minutes away from the start, so please be patient and we'll get kick off in about 5 minutes or so. Thank you. Okay, I think we're just about ready to get started. Just waiting for my cue to come through and then we'll kick off. Okay, I'm ready to start. Okay, good afternoon, everybody. This is Arun Wadhwani from the Ingram Micro Cloud Sales team based in Sydney. Today, I'm excited to take you through the Cloud Awesomeness Roadmap. Some of you would have seen over the last week or so invitations from the Ingram Micro Cloud team for the roadshows we're running in some of the regional locations across Australia in the month of August. We're running in Adelaide on the 14th of August, the Gold Coast on the 16th, Canberra on the 22nd, and Perth at the end of the month there. So really excited to obviously have you along today just to hear a little bit about the messaging and what it's all about. Obviously, if you're in any of the CBD areas, Sydney, Melbourne, or Brisbane, you're welcome to reach out to me directly or any of the account managers or BDMs that you typically deal with in the team. And they'd be more than happy to come and meet with you and talk you through the roadmap in a bit more detail post this event, should you be in those other locations. So super exciting today to take you through this. So just to give you a bit of background on what we're doing today, I'm going to give you the overview of the Ingram Micro digital transformation journey, Cloud Awesomeness Roadmap and what that's all about. Give you a little bit of research behind the numbers, not too detailed, but just a little bit of fact around there. And lastly, we'll talk about the cross-sell and product multiplier model. Okay, feel free to enter any questions you have in the chat box as we go through the session. And also, depending on how time goes with this webinar, I'll answer those hopefully live today at the end of the presentation, or alternatively, if there's any that I can't answer, any of those tough questions, then either myself or one of the sales team will come back to you afterwards with the answer to any queries that you raise. Okay, so very quickly, the digital journey with Ingram Micro Cloud. So we've been on a path, we've been doing cloud now for 3.5 years. When we go through and make investments around the Ingram Cloud Marketplace, we've made investments around our launch, the automation, global expansion, integration, the business transformation, and basically the outsource of the context. So we've got teams globally that are positioned around managing this infrastructure. We've got a fair investment in this technology. We have a fair idea of what we're doing around bringing on the right team, how we bring on the sales resource, manage it with compensation to make that work, the core competencies of those individuals, making sure their skill sets align to the role that they're doing to support you as our partners around that journey. We've made some significant investments over the last 3.5 years on the cloud marketplace. We have a number of partners that have taken advantage of that technology over the last few years and have obviously got a lot of value from being a part of our ecosystem and one of our customers. We continue to make that evolution around the technology and also looking to add on more services in the future. We have over 20 services now that complement really our Office 365 platform and the Microsoft 365 technologies that obviously work very well with your customers. That investment will continue around skills and resources and engineers to maintain that. If you are one of our larger resellers and you're looking to perhaps grow to the next scale, our hyperscale platform now that works very nicely with the cloud marketplace is our Cloud Blue platform. So obviously, if you have questions around how all that works and the differences between the two, really it's more about the hyperscale and working with services which are not traditionally managed in the marketplace. Me and my team are very happy to talk to you in a bit more detail about how all of that works. So the Cloud Awesomeness Roadmap really is a piece of work that we've done at a global level. We've gone and analysed our 45,000 partners globally that are currently on that platform. We've done the profiling. We've put a lot of science and insights into building this roadmap. We've analysed what makes them successful, and we found our partners are at different stages in their journey around this life cycle. What we want them to use is to get their energy investments more into the next level, and that's really what the whole Cloud Awesomeness Roadmap is all about. It's basically a recipe working with most of our partners today are in that build phase. About 60% of them at the moment have really kind of got to maybe that first subscription around Office 365, and have identified now that they're being perhaps opportunistic in their approach. They're still learning. They're learning about that whole return on the investment around cloud, where that break even is pointed obviously within their business and how they're going to adopt that cloud technologies. Today, most of our partners trade out to the marketplace on behalf of their customers. They do their ordering, their provisioning and invoicing manually, and there's no consistency on the process and it's prone to errors. They are reactive, opportunistic when it comes to selling cloud services to their customers, selling only a few cloud-based solutions, typically 1, 2, or even perhaps 3 services. Basically, they are using more word of mouth and human interaction. The provisioning is generally done in 30 days, and there's little or no automation on how that provisioning works. The next stage we move on to now is the breadth stage, where the expansion of the portfolio typically goes sort of beyond those 3 services. It may go to 4 or even perhaps 5 services, in some cases even higher. That really helps you as a partner around your profitability, driving top line, incurring monthly recurring revenue, which is obviously important around your profitability and your cash flow. The need to pivot your strategy around the needs of your customers is really around working around that cross-sell activity, using perhaps more automation around your business automation, and taking advantage of things like digital marketing techniques to help build your branding awareness to your clients. The main focus of this stage is through becoming masters of cross-selling, and really my sales team are happy to help you around coaching on how you do that and take advantage of some of those other services I've mentioned, which complement really the core platforms around Office 365 that a lot of you will be very familiar with today. Really the hard work is done around building together that second service. So it's very easy perhaps getting the conversation with your customer around Office 365. How do you perhaps look at complementing that with the next service, whether it be Dropbox or another technology that really adds value to that customer? And by having that, maybe that second or that third or even that fourth subscription really does help that customer to get value from that investment they have with you and that relationship that you want to continue. Customers need and significantly improve your profitability, and by having potentially that second or third service really does help increase your profitability with your customer, and that obviously makes it worth your investment in your time and obviously to maintain those particular relationships. Customer expansion cost is much lower than customer acquisition cost. Revenue growth comes at a much lower level, and cross-selling to existing customer is something which obviously does increase your profitability and does obviously give you a much more sustainable model around your cloud business. Customer retention is the main focus of our breadth partners, and if customers are only buying 1 subscription from you as their reseller, it's very easy for them to move across to a competitor and obviously potentially lose that customer. As a result, churn rates north of 15% tend to be typical when you only have 1 service. But when you start looking at including perhaps 1, 2, or even 3 services, those churn rates drop very quickly from that 15%, and it can go down to even perhaps as low as 5. So what we typically do is when you sit down with the sales team at Ingram Micro, the team will help you around looking at which services complement your customers, really how we help them around having that conversation, and really help you to feel equipped with the right information to have those discussions. And that's something that we're obviously very pleased to be able to offer to our customers, and we'd like to obviously offer that to you from today. We reviewed the cross-sell journey, and we've identified that really it's kind of the next stage. When you start looking at the depth play, you're looking at hybrid catalog. You then can take advantage around your brand, and you can look for potentially new customers and new target segments to go after. And that then looks at the investment around integrated digital marketing, taking advantage of around automating your provisioning, not relying on that sort of manual process, and you start looking at investments in making that process much more streamlined, much faster for your customers, and provides a much better experience for your customers. And it also, as I said, leverages the ability to do the cross-sell. When you move to the final position around scale, that really helps you around all the other areas that we've already covered in build, breadth, and depth, but it also allows you to take advantage of things like the hybrid catalog, and potentially areas, for example, around IaaS with infrastructure as a service, but typically where we focus around the Azure piece. Okay, so that really covers sort of the roadmap in the highest level. Okay, so cloud empowering our small business for growth. Typically, we've identified some research that about 30% of small businesses, that typically is under 99 seats, typically only will take advantage of one cloud service. Whereas medium businesses typically, which is sort of 100 up to 1,000, typically is around 56%, will actually take advantage of perhaps just that one service. We've identified when you start looking at adding in additional services, so you get that second one on, really for that small business, you tend to get the ratio tends to go up to around 3.9. And when you're looking at that medium business, again, up to that sort of 1,000-seat organization, that typically goes up to about services around 8. So we're actually seeing that by having the additional services does really increase that retention and potentially also gives that stickiness to your clients. And those tend to be the top services that we offer. We tend to find Office 365 is always a core product, and great solutions, for example, around backup with Skykick can really help around backing up the Office 365 environment and potentially giving you that second service, which really does help add great value to your customers and, of course, your profitability. Okay, the value of the cross-sell. So we've identified boosting revenue and profits. Existing customers from the research have identified are much more willing to try new cloud services. So potentially by maintaining your customers and that relationship and that investment around the account management, they're more likely to want to take advantage of the advice that you're giving and the recommendations and how we help them around bringing on that second service, for example, Skykick Backup I mentioned, or other components, and that really helps around how you obviously add more value to your clients. Really, it shows you boosting your profitability. You're increasing your average order value to your customers. Your cross-sell obviously keeps your customers. Obviously, you want to maintain that longer life cycle with your clients and adding more value. Again, it talks about reducing the churn rates, because obviously they're getting more value from that investment they're making. And that really does increase your customer lifetime value, your LTV, and really how you maintain potentially other services that are wrapping around those core subscription products to increase your profitability. And potentially, if you're maintaining that relationship over the longer term, the research does indicate that you're potentially going to increase your profitability up to 14 times, then perhaps just going with that one service from the outset. So the small business journey, we've broken those down into these core areas. So it's email, security, collaboration, backup, websites, CRM, and really financials. The small business journey is partners need to be with their customers, that acts as their customers' trusted advisor and help them to provide the best solutions to power these small businesses. They need to make sure their customers have lots of options to help them to install, configure, and get the most of their technology. We have developed the best practice and the natural progression to adding more service onto the account, which is really where the marketplace can really help you to provision those services. And the cross-sell multipliers there, I've just added in some of the logos that you'll be familiar with on the marketplace, for those of you that are obviously already on there and making that investment. So Office 365, I've mentioned before, Skykick obviously key there. One of our new offerings is really around Cisco Umbrella, which we've just launched. And that's really around communication and collaboration. We've also got the security there with some of our technologies. Some of you will be familiar with these already around Semantic, Northbridge Secure, around remote management. And it then continues around collaboration. A lot of you will be familiar with Dropbox and Cisco Spark. And of course now great evolutions around Microsoft Teams. So there's some really great technologies there. And if you can help your customers around having those conversations about how they use those technologies, that can really help around helping them around their issues around their businesses and getting greater connectivity and increase productivity within those businesses. I've also mentioned Azure is our infrastructure as a service offering, and we also have there a website builder, of course, called Yola. We're also very excited that we're going to have Microsoft Dynamics coming up under our CRM banner, and some of you will be already familiar with our eSign product, which is DocuSign. That's our flagship eSign product that complements very nicely with the Microsoft products, particularly works very well with solutions like SharePoint, Dynamics, and obviously brings all that together for you. And then lastly, with financials, we're looking at potentially Microsoft Dynamics as well down the track. So some really good core offerings there and some great capability. The product multiplier model really talks about making investments with your customers, and typically around an annual recurring revenue perspective. In the first year, you can drive potentially around $40,000, $44,000 in this particular case. The annual recurring margin is around $7,000. Cost of acquisition does equate to about $2,000. So basically your profitability in that first year works out to be about $5,000. However, by increasing your relationship with your customers and adding in those additional services, the cost of retention in year 2 basically is a 25% cost in acquisition because you've made that investment in the first year. And then when you start looking at the cost of the retention in year 3, the increase in cost is really around 3 to 4%. So very quickly, your profitability can continue to grow, and the more service that you provide to your clients, obviously the better it will be around your profitability, as well as obviously maintaining better relationship with your customers and adding more value to how they're running their businesses. So I mentioned about the regional roadshows that are coming up in August, so that's only a couple of weeks away now. So we've got in Adelaide on the 14th, I've got the details there. They're all morning sessions from 8 till 12. Really, it's an opportunity to hear in a bit more detail around what we're doing around the Microsoft technologies. It's more about the advanced workloads and some of the capability that fits within there. You'll actually hear from Microsoft around some of the cool technologies around PowerShell that works very well with Azure Active Directory. You'll hear about the integration with products like SharePoint and Dynamics I've mentioned before. And it also works very well with the integration with our flagship product around eSign, which I mentioned with DocuSign. So there's a half day there investment. It's really allow you to get into a lot more detail on how all those pieces fit together and then provide a very complete solution to help your customers around greater productivity around using the technologies around Microsoft and related technologies. Okay, I've now opened up for any questions that you may have. Feel free to include any of those in the chat box, and if you have any questions, fire away. Okay, just giving a couple more minutes in case there's any questions that are coming through the chat box. Okay, looks like we don't have any questions coming through at the moment. So certainly if you have any questions after you've been through this content, feel free to send those through to me, and also we'll answer those. As I mentioned, if you do have particular questions or you'd like to know in more detail about any of the products that sit on the marketplace, feel free to reach out to the Cloud team directly, and they'll be very happy to take you through on a one-to-one basis in more detail. The Microsoft portfolio or any of the other technologies we have currently sitting on the marketplace. So I'll leave it there. Thank you very much for joining the webinar this afternoon, And we will also be sending out a follow-up communication to everybody this afternoon so that you'll know how to register to join these particular sessions in those regional locations I covered just before. Thank you and good afternoon.